Hello and welcome to BBB Smart Consumer Program. We hope you've had a good week, and if this is the first time you're joining us for our series, BBB Smart Consumer is to help you better understand the marketplace, its influences on some of the challenges facing consumers and businesses, and how to protect yourself, your family, and loved ones against criminals who try to separate us from our money and our personal information. Our focus is to look at some of the challenges facing financial institutions and consumers and related security issues. So joining us now to help put this all together for us is Stuart Phillips, the President and CEO of UBI Federal Credit Union. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Howard. How are you?
Very well, thanks. So let's start at the top. We hear banks, we hear credit unions. What is the difference?
Some people don't really realize there's a difference, but there is. A credit union is a non-for-profit organization, which means they are exempt from federal tax implications. Basically, every dollar of a credit union person, individual that banks with us becomes actually a pro-share owner of the credit union within itself. So they actually have ownership rights, and that's been treated as that basically since the credit unions came into existence way back in the 1940s.
What was the rationale back then?
The rationale for credit unions was basically, a lot of them came to be because a lot of companies would look at their employees and where they're going for lunch or different things like that, and leaving the building, and they would have food, laundry cleaning, dry cleaning, and they said, it would be good to have something in a banking kind of methodology within their building so that people don't have to leave then to go to the bank to get money or do whatever they have to do. So basically the credit union mission was to have a thrift of which people could deposit their earnings right into the credit union where they work. Some of that money might be lent out to others for their needs when they have the need to borrow some money for something.
I get the feeling that it's very much a family sort of environment for customers who walk into a credit union.
It is very family oriented. It's always been that way as far as people to pass on the credit union banking principles to their children. It basically is quite the large spectrum these days. It goes from their grandparents all the way down to newborns, where you have grandparents today setting up accounts for their grandchildren, and so it covers quite the wide array of ages.
And before we get into the larger picture of handling one's finances, the interest rates, the fees have quite a different structure than they do at the major banks, don't they?
Well, less fee oriented, more consumer oriented. The structure of that has always been fairly traditional to provide less risk weights of what we do. So in other words, if we're not lending our money out from one customer to another, or we call them members, the remaining amount of money would be in the investment world. But our investments aren't into the risk returns that you see within Wall Street. Our investment structures are basically tied to the U.S. government securities, such as the U.S. Treasuries and the like. So we're not putting as much risk out there with their money, so therefore we're able to handle things differently as far as how we offer their deposit rates and their lending rates. We tend to be very competitive to the current market of other financial institutions, and hopefully we can continue with doing that.
Excellent. If we look at the larger picture now, and every time I do a speaking engagement, I ask people how they feel about technology, and there's always minimum of anywhere from 1 to 5 people who say, I will do all sorts of things online, I will not do banking. Can you give us a feel why people would be more suspicious or afraid of doing online banking as opposed to putting a credit card number into a browser?
Right. Well, it's a real challenge today. We're going through what I call a transitional period, where people have to make a decision by which utility they're going to use to do their day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month banking. Technology has been put out there and is changing every day for what those technologies may be. People will opt for the technology to save time, for convenience. if the technologies don't work for them when they want them to work, they're going to be extremely resistant to what's wrong with this and why can't this work, whether that's from their mobile device or from their computer or whatever means by which they're utilizing that technology. But what happens is that they can get to a point where they find that, is it working well, and also is it secure? A lot of people have doubts about the security of that, such as to go onto their computer and to handle a transaction with their bank or credit union, I should say, and go into there and into that and basically say, well, who else is seeing what I'm doing? Who else could get my information, my account number, my social, my private information? Well, it's our job to protect through infrastructures, through a huge layer of platforms to protect their information. That's the big challenge. But we wouldn't provide that technology or that utility unless the challenge was complete. So that, in other words, we can assure them that we're protecting what they have and what they're doing. But still, people are insecure today with the use of their mobile devices or a home device to access their private information.
I find it just a little more than ironic that people will put all types of things openly on social media, that people will go to unsafe areas and put in their credit cards, yet they're afraid to use an application designed for high security, such as a bank or a credit union.
Well, today it's so much more convenient to make a purchase, or people today are, I've been hearing about this time of year, Christmas time, holiday time, where people, of course, are extremely busy with online purchases, and therefore they use different payment sources to make that purchase, of which case it could be the credit cards. And a lot of people have the confidence that it is secure and it will work. They also have the confidence that if their identity is stolen or something to deal with that their credit card company will protect them from a potential loss or an issue that has arrived. With online banking, there's a whole different set of screens, a whole different set of access points, and what they're seeing can actually confuse them or bring to their attention, am I the only one that's just seeing this?
Right.
Is this something that's just here between what I'm looking at and what's being on that screen, or does anybody else have basically my IP address to basically see everything that I'm doing, transferring money, wiring money, whatever it is? These utilities can do quite a few different things. You can make a deposit, you can make a withdrawal, you can make a payment to some other source, so you have a lot of exposure. So I think we're through, like I said earlier, we're going through a transitional period of where people have to continue to gain more consumer confidence in what they're using.
Is it up to the industry at all to teach people more about the security, to show them the steps that are taken to make it more secure?
Well, education is probably considered to be the number one thing that is important for your customer base. We call them our customers members, for our members to know about basically the utilities that they're using. It's a real challenge for how you can bring this to their attention. We have people in our office that are professionally trained to assist them with any questions or concerns that they may have. We also have people that are properly trained to set them up with new utilities. So everybody at one point became a new user. And so, it's important that we properly educate them on what it is they're doing, how they're doing it, how do we secure it if they should happen to know. We don't come out and give them a complete essay of just everything that's behind the scenes of what we really do, but it's important to let them know that what they're doing is a good utility and they should be confident that it is secure.
Another thing that surprised me, and I remember the very first so-called electronic transaction I ever did was by telephone, pressing numbers and answering prompts. I was surprised to learn that Gallup found that almost half of Americans are as afraid or more of doing banking over the telephone as using the internet, which I was a bit puzzled about.
Well, what we're finding today is that What we're talking about is a huge array of access points. Most people today are demanding a lot of access points by which you may be able to provide it. That could be an access point for them to basically handle their transaction securely as they need to do so and to get it done. It could be via the phone. It could be via the email. It could be via a text. It could be through a real person. It could be on your mobile device. It could be on your tablet. It could be through your computer. What they're expecting is that whatever access point they choose, that they're able to get done what they need to do.
Right.
If they come to the point of a roadblock where it's either a real individual or some people call it artificial intelligence. There's the intelligence of computers in the digital world that provides the channels by which these people can operate with these utilities. No matter what, they're expecting these utilities to work and for them to get done what they need to do, or else basically it's slowing them down. They would be better off doing what people normally would do back when, which was on a Saturday go to the bank or after work or on their lunch hour or whatever case it may be. And I have to tell you, some people still really treasure that.
Right.
Some people really would say to us or to myself, I don't care about electronic this and electronic that. I appreciate your staff. I like coming into the branch. It's something that is meaningful to me. I get to know the people that are servicing me. I know that they know what I like and the things that I do, and they're able to greet me in person. And they really, truly value that. And they don't want to see us take that away. But the challenging component today is providing everything to everybody.
Right. You can't do that right now.
No, but we seem to be in the period of time where we have to educate ourselves about the technological channels to determine which ones will be the meaningful ones to offer to people, to determine the brevity of what it would be to deploy that utility, because some things are very complicated and it takes a well-educated staff for everybody to put that together.
Right.
You know, such as offering a very sophisticated application on a mobile device, and for that to properly function and work perfectly.
All right. Let's step back a couple of decades, and it was exactly like you said. You'd go to the local bank, you'd do it at the teller, and I still remember index cards being used to cover people's accounts. That must have been a long turnover and take a whole different, the paradigm changed entirely, didn't it?
Right. It's really amazing, Howard, that I truly remember those cards. My kids would be thinking, really? But yeah, the ledger cards of individual little cards that you would go in and you would track your savings, and it felt like you had something.
The little book they would stamp.
The
too.
little book. And I think a lot of us can reflect upon that and know that a lot of people still really value some principles that still keep. That's what I call a traditional methodology, a traditional service. And to a lot of people, they look at that and they say that was value. You could see your money build. You could have a pen in your hand or a pencil, and you could jot down what you have, and you could really, you could really absorb your ability to grow your deposit account. And today, people don't even really balance their account. They just look and see what their availability is. They just assume everything clears automatically, everything clears within whatever it may be. I mean, I must basically tell you, compared, if you're going back to that time period, today we're looking at what is truly, where is this gone? Well, people are looking for 24/7 service.
Right.
People may want to do their banking at 2 o'clock in the morning. People work all kinds of shifts. People telecommute. Traditionally, what people do and how they live their lives has significantly changed. So how can we best accommodate when they want to bank?
Right.
And if we don't provide it, they're going to find a place that does.
Now, how are we doing on e-receipts? Because banks, among others, are offering people either to change over their statements to electronic statements, as well as gas stations and other places. Is that something that your credit union has gotten into yet, or is that more on the retail side?
No, actually, we do offer electronic statements. In fact, we require that you would take an electronic statement, or else we're going to have a small fee on a monthly basis, because the cost of actually getting a company to take the data, produce the statement, put the ink on it, mail it, and everything is a laborious and expensive task. Electronic statements are far more convenient, especially if you have the majority of your membership or your customer base utilizing electronic platforms. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot more convenient, and it's much easier to store. But I have to be realistic that people really want to have their statement in hand. They value that. They feel more secure about that. They're not going to argue the point of how secure is it if they lost it, or if their statement got lost in the mail.
Right.
There are many people that lose their identity because their statement got lost in the mail. But still, many people would feel that's much more secure for me to every month, when that periodic statement comes out, that I'm going to get this thing in the mail, versus you telling me through an email message that your statement is ready and now available, and here it is, and simply look at it and download it and do whatever you have to do. But of course, we're going into the newer technologies of where your statement can come and where you can store it and how you can basically keep it protected yourself. You have to actually take certain steps yourself. We're going to get it to you, but then there are steps that you have to do to make sure that your statement is protected as well. Now, your statement is not going to show your full account number or your extremely private information, such as your social security number and things like that. It's just a statement showing what your transactional register really reflected.
Marketing for banks. Now, you've got millennials who seem to be, they have a different mindset than Generation X and the ones that preceded them. Do you have to market a different way to get their attention?
Oh, of course, you really have to market. There's basically articles written every day on the perfect way to market to millennials. I don't think anybody's really figured it out. And actually, I think there's a good set of millennials that do actually appreciate tradition, that actually don't want all of the technology. They're happy to still go to the bank, and my daughter has a checkbook, and she would prefer to make the deposit at the branch, versus taking a phone out and what we call item capture and taking a picture of the check. Now, she's a millennial; she just graduated college, but she would prefer not to do that. So the challenging part for us is some of them would want the most technological features, and others wouldn't really want it. But and now we're getting concerned about the generation that will be before the millennials, because literally you have a 1-year-old holding mom and dad's cell phone, watching a video game, and already learning all the maneuvers of what a mobile device does.
And they'll probably have a social security number too, even before they're a year old.
Yeah, so I really look at this and I say, that's our customer base coming into this world. They're there. They may be 2 years old, but they're alive, and they're going to basically start to have something to do with the banking world in their lives, all the way up to the seniors, which is another area of concern of where they are and how their needs can best be met. But when you look at this gap of from seniors all the way down to the children of today, it's quite the range of how you can best market to them.
Maybe we could finish off with a thumbnail of, if someone comes up to you, as they've done to me, and they ask you, is online banking safer than other types of online activity, given the kinds of data breaches we've seen over the past 5 years or so?
Well, there will always be data breaches of different things. So we just have to live through this and learn that anything can happen. So nothing ever is, as my grandmother said, nothing ever is 100%. But our job is to provide the objective of attaining 110% protection. So we look at this and we say to ourselves, the security of their information, of these platforms, has to be correct, it has to be accurate, it has to be timely, has to be efficient, and be by any means by which they may want to have that access point.
Excellent. Stuart Phillips, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Howard.
From UBI Federal Credit Union. Well, that wraps up this episode of BBB Smart Consumer. If you've learned anything, then it's time well spent if you share that with friends, loved ones, neighbors, and colleagues, because that's the only way, by sharing this information, that we can hope to protect ourselves. And we can also find out what's true and what's misinformation in terms of technology in the hands of consumers and businesses. So this applies to stores, consumers, financial insurance companies, to name just a few. Don't be afraid of the new technology, but if you're not comfortable with it, ask lots of questions. And once again, I'd like to thank our guest, Stuart Phillips, for joining us and to sort of help us sort out all of this out on BBB Smart Consumer. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.